Hello and welcome to our first ever live stream podcast. This is the Midwest Karting channel. It has been a long time since we have put out any production for you guys whatsoever. Normally it's been audio recordings we've been doing. Sean Burkle, who I started this with, he's off doing big things right now. He's taking photos for all sorts of mainstream media, doing some stuff here on the side. Fortunately, he's going to be here this afternoon, but this is mostly to promote the three gentlemen who are off on my right-hand side of the screen, your left, about the SIRA Karting series based in Indiana, Southern Indiana Racing Association, as well as we have Ivan here from Motori Seven to talk about the up-and-coming 80cc shifter junior class that's taken off in Europe, and they're trying to bring that over here in the Midwest. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off here to Matthew Burpo, the president of SIRA. Matthew, first I'm going to ask you, just tell us about when SIRA, when you took it over, it was kind of coming out of COVID. So there's a little bit of a leeway of if things are going to work, how they're going to work. Most people probably don't know what SIRA is out there who isn't from Indiana or the Midwest. So go ahead and give a quick rundown. Jason, you're also part of it too. So if you guys want to tell us what SIRA is and what the state it was when you took it over and how you've gone with it so far.
So SIRA, Southern Indiana Racing Association, is a street racing series here in Indiana that's been together for over 50 years, I believe. We had a rough year in 2020 because cities were like canceling things, of course, and they kind of bounced back in 2021 and 2022, and they kind of grew back again. And then we had some insurance issues. So last year in 2023, we managed to pull together one street race in Anderson, and then we had a race at Whiteland and a race at Newcastle. And some fairly low entries because it was kind of all thrown together last minute. And then this year we got insurance taken care of, and we managed to do some street races, partnered up with USAC for the Elkhart Grand Prix. And then we had a race at Whiteland, and we're doing the Speedrome Showdown here in October. And entries have been pretty good this last half of the season. We've been around 140 or so, versus the beginning of the year we started around 60.
Now, Jason Ewers, I'm going to take it over to you now because I know you've been a part of this as well. Growing up as a kid, I remember watching and knowing who you were. You grew up in the Indiana region and involved in karting as well. And you've been a huge factor as well. You and Matthew both, amongst a bunch of other people as well, have been part of getting SIRA back on its feet. So tell us a little bit about, we'll get to the Smackdown here in a second, but let's go ahead and talk about the series as a whole and how you guys have managed to turn 60 entries into 140. Let's be perfectly honest here. For a class that's based in something regional, which I believe SIRA is, kind of a state series, 140 is very impressive, especially in how things are today.
Yeah, I mean, first off, Matt and Justin alone have Justin Laudick has done an amazing job. Because of my family and my professional life, it's hard for me to be as involved as Matt and Justin. They have given blood, sweat, and tears and hours trying to get this organization back up and running. And I think we definitely have the momentum going. Matt's, been a racer forever, retired, comes out of retirement, but he understands what the racers want. And I think we've positioned ourselves as SRA as a step above like club racing, but yet below the regional racing where things are affordable. You don't have to have a brand new set of tires every time you come out to be competitive. And I think a lot of racers want that and get sick and tired of maybe running the same tracks all the time. And they want a little bit of flavor in their racing. I got trophies from 1978 that say SRA on them. I mean, it's kind of crazy, how long the organization has been around, and it was primarily all street racing back then. And we're trying to get back there, and it may not be through streets of towns. It may be parking lots, but it's going to be temporary circuits that are going to give people, an equal playing ground to be able to go to a fresh track that they've never driven on. And it's not someone who's turned 500 laps at Whiteland Speedway like we're at right now, where they have an advantage. So, just the entries that we've done, the barrier to enter to just race with this is inexpensive. Matt's done something that he's got a lot of kudos for, and that's running a 206A class and a 206B class instead of running light, medium, heavy. They're all the same weight, so no one has to keep swapping weight back and forth. And I think that's been very well received up on the racers. And I can actually see, a lot of other organizations kind of maybe going to that platform next year. It just makes sense. It's an easy weight for everyone to get to. There's nothing worse than taking weight off a cart, putting a weight back on the cart. There's potential of not double nutting something or leaving something loose or forgetting to put a weight on and you miss weight. So it just makes things a lot easier for everybody. And I think that's what the racers want is just ease coming in, have a really good program that's ran tight. And I think we've done a good job at running a program that is really based off of a national level program to where, I think back before, people always talked about SRA kind of being like a brotherly club. And it's like, we'll get the racing whenever we get to it. We've really have driven it down to where it's ran like a national program, but it's got the expense of really truly a local club level race. So people can come and experience it. Great racing. We're getting great numbers. I mean, I think our 206A and 206B, we've had 40 entries in those classes, which is crazy. Considering last year, I think we had 40 races or 40 entries period for an entire event. So I'm excited, to the Speedrome race, that's for us, hearing the chatter from everybody else and looking at the entries that we're already getting from top level drivers and just shifters. Like we haven't had a shifter entry all year, and now we have 7 or 8 already, and we still, our entries don't really come in until like a week to week and a half before the event. So I'm looking for the 125 shifter class to be huge for that event. We're trying to kind of stage it as a Super Nats prelude. Come out. It's a temporary track. It's dirty. Come test your stuff out. It's a good opportunity. I think Joe Ruck's I don't think he's entered yet, but I've been talking to Joe and he's trying to get a cart from Maranello, and that's exactly what he wants to do. He wants to come down and do some testing for Super Nats, and it's a good opportunity for him to do that. But things like that next year we're trying to do. We've already hit some talks with some other facilities about doing temporary races and parking lots. And building really cool tracks and doing fun stuff. And we try to give back to our racers too. We are a not-for-profit, so it's easy for us to give away larger prizes or larger purses. And I mean, what do we have, 1,000 to win for 206? If we're over how many entries?
If we hit the 40, we're doing 1,000 to win. And I think any other class that we do, anybody that reaches 20 entries, we're going to do 500, 250, 100.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead. Sorry, Caleb.
Well, I just want to talk about a second. When people talk about what you're talking about the stipulation, because I also, when I started, I was racing an SIRA and the shifter side of it. And it was a 100% street race series. And the thing that's incredibly unique about it, and why I think you have drivers, Joe Ruck, for the longest time, called it his home series. Devin Smith Harden came out of SIRA. He grew up in street racing. I think they're more in the Indy Karting series and the IKS side. And then when all that drama happened, they went over to SIRA. But you have all these drivers from the Midwest who had these teams that started behind them and then worked their way up to the national side. But I think a big reason behind that, and doesn't get a lot of talk about, is I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said that it's a completely dirty track. When you show up there on Friday, Saturday, and you set up, track has no rubber on it. I mean, it's a street, and it has rocks, it has marbles, it has dust, all this other stuff that falls on the road. It's got ruts in it. So all these drivers that come out of SRA, when it rains on a normal track, somehow they know how to find grip. And I think it's because they're used to driving with 0 to no grip. And as far as being able to adapt quickly and learn how to set a cart up quickly, I think it's a perfect series for it. And I think what's going on now, I know being a part of just hearing chatter from the national regional side, people love the tracks they're going to, but some of them want to change. Like they're saying, oh, remember Lancaster? Remember Rock Islands? Quincy's back, and they're kind of talking here and there. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for you guys to capitalize off of that, where people maybe want to go to, it used to be, not anymore, unfortunately, a Goodland, Indiana, and figure out what a street race is all about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember, I grew up, that's all I ever did was street race. And when it came to setting up a go-kart, I had no idea how to set up a go-kart. We just maxed out the width and you just changed your driving style around what the kart was doing. And that's how I grew up driving until you started coming to, when Newcastle was built and then, starting to get up on grip. And you're like, okay, I have to really start learning how to tune a chassis. So, what you're kind of saying is it can, like I said, it levels the playing field out on dirty tracks because you don't need to have a perfectly set up chassis to be able to do well. As the weekend progresses, it's going to start getting rubber laid down, and that's kind of where the guys who know how to tune start coming up. But yeah, I think it's funny because that's all we grew up on, and it's like you changed your driving style based on how the kart was handling instead of changing the kart like we do now on your driving style. So
I think Joe Janowski said it best when he said you didn't really set up a go-kart because back in the 90s, all karts were sideways when we went into a corner. So the word grip didn't exist back then unless it was raining. Now, I want to talk about a little bit, obviously the big news. I'll go ahead and throw the photo up here. Our facers are going to disappear for a moment, but let's talk about this right here. And that, almost works. That's the background. Here we go. Technical difficulties. There it is. So let's talk a little bit about what you called the Supernats warm-up. So this is the Indianapolis Speedrome Smackdown, sponsored by Factory Fury GP Kart USA. And this is going to be on a track that's located on the southwest part of Indianapolis there, just west, east, of Beach Grove. Talk to us a little bit how this whole thing got set up, when it is, and basically just the gist of how this came to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when Matt took over SRA and asked myself and the rest of the team to get involved, and even reaching out to Janowski, kind of like, hey, what can we do? And this is before I think we locked down our insurance, and we know that running through streets is very difficult to do these days. Just insurance and liability reason why. So, but finding tracks like this that have barriers, permanent, restrictions, so no one can get to the track at all. Joe's like all day long, you guys could do races like that. So we started just kind of getting on the horn and just calling, Speedrome. We called, we honestly, I think we just kind of really looked on Google Earth and started looking at these tracks and saying, oh, okay, you can definitely put a track inside of that track. Cause there's some of these ovals that have grass and then they just have the figure eight and then that's it. And, last thing we want to do is have someone come out with an LTO chassis and cause all we're doing is turning left. We want it to be a true Grand Prix style of a track to where, you have to set it up. There's plenty of lefts, there's plenty of rights, there's short shoots, there's passing zones, hairpins. And I think, with, Matt and myself and Justin, we tossed around a bunch of different ideas on the track. And we really think that this track has a lot to offer in different things. You got a little bit of banking, wide sweeping turns, high, tight section, hairpins. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I can't wait to see, the shifters out there. What do you got? Anything on that, Matt? Hog it. But yeah, we're excited for it. Kayla, you going to make it up for that?
Oh, sorry. I was waiting. I thought Matthew was going to say something about it.
No, he said I covered everything.
Oh, okay. My bad. I was waiting for that. No, a little bit about that as well. So let's talk about the design, and I can pull it back up for real quick so everyone can see it back home. When you're talking about the design of this, and I think you hit the nail right on the head when you're talking about how we have a bunch of quarter mile and smaller tracks here, especially in the Indianapolis area, but it's completely paved all the way on the inside, all the way through. So looking at this design, as far as the different design layouts you guys have, 100%, you got the sweepers, you got the tight corners, you got the fast corners, you got the short shoots, got a bus stop chicane. How much thought went into actually going through the final detail of it? Because let's be honest, you got a big sweeper going into a hairpin and it could easily have been 90 degree, 90 degree, 90 degree, 90 degree. So how long of a process was that? And how did you have to clear it with Speedrome before you were actually able to put pen to paper?
I think we just started making layouts, screenshot, scribble it out, send it to the group, and just talk it over and did that multiple times. There's probably like 50 different layouts we drew up. So we just kind of settled on one that kind of would be fast but technical.
And something else I wanted to bring up too, because I've seen all the chatter. It looks like people are extremely excited about this event. The biggest thing everyone's talking about is parking. So obviously with this holding Kenyan midgets, quarter midgets, full-size midgets, how does parking look for everyone? Because people are wondering back home how that's going to work for you guys.
There is a ton of parking. They've got, I think, 100 or so semi-hauler size spots in there. I mean, they got a huge pit area that's all fenced in back behind the track.
Awesome. And then I'll bring this map back up again. A little bit about the sponsor of it. How did it come to be that you and Factory Fury, GP Kart USA were able to hook up and put on this event?
That's me. Ken has been, who's Factory Fury GP. He's been a big supporter of SIRA, and really, I think he was impressed with how we ran the Anderson race. And he's GP Factory USA is really kind of a shifter based karting company. That's basically all they have. They don't have, they're starting to get their 206 program going, but most of their teammates are all shifter drivers. So just made a call to Ken and ask him, and he was happy to help us out. These putting on these temporary events it's not cheap. I mean, it's expensive. By the time you get barriers in and you get, you have to pay the speedrome and pay the workers, it's expensive. So anytime we can get any type of sponsorship, it just helps us out. And that allows us to give more back to the racers, for the event. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want people to come experience, a fantastic event that's ran professionally, but also have fun. And then when they leave, we want them talking about, I can't wait to come run this event next year or come run another SRA event. And that's kind of our goal. And I think we've done a really good job. I think we're going to plan on doing a cookout on Saturday night. To be honest with you, I believe, in copying is the greatest form of flattery. And we really are just trying to model ourselves off of what Joe and Janowski did at Stars when he first started Stars. And, I was privileged enough to run those events at the, when they first started. And that's what they did. I think Joe's first race was 25 entries, and it was at Norway. 30 entries, there was hardly any entries, but we had a blast that night. We had a cookout and we had a bunch of alcohol. It was a fun event, and it just grew and grew and grew. And we're kind of copying that, and making it, we're not going to go to that, regional level like he is, but we definitely want to be that stepping stone between club racing and running events like that, to where you can come run with us and have an event that you are experiencing, a professionally ran organization. But like I said earlier, you don't have to have brand new tires to come in to be competitive. You don't have to at least that, $5,000 motor to be able to be running up front. It's kind of our goal is just to kind of keep it in between those two levels.
Now, a little bit, we were talking about how you're basing it off of Stars, which I think is a great platform. I think they're one of the first series when they switched over to doing time instead of laps as far as the counts go. How is the SIRA weekend layout all the way through? So if someone sees this and they're like, okay, I'm going out to Supernats for the first time, might want to get experience on a street race, how is this going to work out? So what, as far as the entire weekend goes, what is the layout and what can people expect?
So we do a Saturday, Sunday show. And sometimes we've done double headers, but for this one, we're going to do like the national format. We'll have a couple practice rounds on Saturday, qualifying and 2 heat races. And then Sunday we'll do warm up, pre-final, final. And we do everything based on time. So practice sessions will be, like 5 to 7 minutes. Qualifying will be 5 to 7 minutes. Heat races will be time plus 2 laps. And so will the pre-final and final.
And class structure. Obviously, we're going to get to one of the big classes here in a second that's making a comeback. But what does the class structure look like as of right now?
Okay. So we have Kid Karts, 206 Sportsman Green Slide, 206 Junior Gold Slide, Mini and Micro, KA Junior, KA Senior, 206A, B, and Masters. And all three of those classes are 375 pounds. So you can just run, if you're Masters age, you can run all three. And then we have, let's say KA Senior. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then shifters, 125 shifter and 80cc senior shifter. And then we are bringing the KZ Junior.
Yes, so that is the big talking point that we're going to get going here. And Ivan, you've been sitting there so patiently, and I'm so sorry that we haven't been able to get you out here, but now we're going to bring you back in. So yes, 80cc Junior making a return to the Midwest. This class is near and dear to my heart as far as just any 80 package goes. I believe the reason I met both of you is because of the 80cc class. For context, for seniors, I think it's a fantastic class if you don't want to break the bank, but you want to go out and have some fun. You want to get behind a gearbox. For juniors, it's a great platform to lead your way up to senior. And I believe, Jason, you said it best at the 2017 bout at the Brickyard when you said driving an 80 is like Yamaha with a gearbox, where you can actually race close to people. Except at that track, everyone raced close together because it was one massive road race. But Ivan, you're the Motori 7 guy, and thank you so much. I'm sure our difference is not favorable from being in Italy to here. So thank you for being on the podcast, and give us the entire rundown, how this came up, what to expect with the class, the progress of it, and then your stance right now as it goes in Indiana.
Well, basically, we designed this kind of engine. Well, who is Motori 7? Motori 7 is an Italian company producing racing engines since 1978. I think before we were present in the US market with an engine who was called L4. It was 125 touch and go engine who actually dominated Scusa in Vegas, but then Yamaha came with the X30 and they bought the category, and then it was done for Motori 7 for the Scusa. 80cc was designed as a racing engine. It's not adaptation of any kind of other engine. It's not an adaptation of the motorbike engine for the karting. It's real karting engine with the exhaust on the right side and the carb in the front. And it's built to be really robust. Saying that, we also decided to use pedal shifters, not the classical lever, even though you can mount the classical lever on the shifter card to be used. But we decided to use pedal shifters because both hands are on the steering wheel, especially in the moments when you have to shift down and brake and turn the wheel all simultaneously. So we designed basically the pedal shifter for this class. But after some time, people starting to ask for this pedal shifter for the KZ 125. So we said, okay, no problem. We make some adaptations for the different type of engines. So it's not only for Motori 7 engine, it could be used on TM as well, on Vortex, on Modena, on any kind of basically shifter engine. What we expect from the class is designed for the primarily designed for the kids who like to learn the shifting before they enter the KZ world. Normally in Europe, this is the way after the OK Junior, then OK Senior, then you go to the KZ. But the kids would be better prepared, I would say, if they go to KZ Junior category. I'm not saying that they should skip any categories from FIA, but the shifter cards are driving a different trajectory than the touch and go cards. And the idea was to stimulate the kids to learn this as soon as possible and to learn to listen to the engine, to keep it always in the power band, and always to watch on the carburation and watch for the temperatures, and simply to be prepared for the KZ category. Also, we have, especially in Switzerland, it's really popular in the senior category. So it's like more, we call it a hobby category, where the senior citizens are driving shifter carts and having fun with them.
So now I think you brought up a good point where you can stimulate, you said, more shifter drivers, because right now in the US market, there is no branch to go from being micro mini to a shifter class. You have to go up through the tag category. You can go through X30 junior, you can go through KA junior, but there is no junior shifter category. So you have all these drivers that come up through it. They get to being 14, 15 years old. They've either learned KA and they're going to move on to X30 and try to do that, or they're thinking to themselves, I'm just going to go straight to X30 because I've done junior. But there's no branch, and it's kind of almost a regress if you've gone all the way up through single clutch, if you're in KA or tag, never learned how to do a gearbox, and then you see guys like Daniel Palmel and AJ Myers tearing up the race every single weekend, and they don't have a branch to get into it. So that's a new one. A little bit, how did the making of this, was that 100% why this engine came up, or was it kind of like the 80 class where it started as an adult that just transitioned to junior?
No, basically it started to motivate the kids. It started to fill, the category was designed basically to fill the gap, exactly what you said. Because if you go from your 10th year of your life, or 11, when you're 11 years old, when you go to tag or any kind of kart that requires you to keep the revs in going to the turns, you will practice next 5 or 6 or 7 years, you will practice trajectories that are wrong for you if your aim and your goal is to end up in the shifter kart. So we said it's better to learn the kids on time. So basically, let's try to compare these two things. Let's say you have a driver who is 15 years old and he's driving, for last 5 years, he's driving touch and go. And you have a kid who is 15 years old and last 3 years he's driving shifter kart. And then they both end up in the shifter kart category. What would you expect? I think the answer is obvious, no?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and I think that's kind of what we've been missing. And every time we talk about it, the number one saying all the way through is if you look at the guys who are top running in 125 and KZ right now, they all ran 80 junior or a program prior to that. I think Billy Musgrave has a good idea when he's trying to stimulate it all the way down to 60 and 50 cc shifters, which that is in and of itself. I don't conceive of that when I was 14, 15 years old driving a shifter kart. But I think this is a good package. And we're talking about the paddle shifters. Again, Jason, you talked about it before we even went live. How do you think that it's kind of astronomical that we don't even have something like that right now?
Well, I think the best thing for it is the kids who have their current kart, you don't have to go buy a shifter kart or have a mechanism for the lever shifter. You know, this just bolts straight onto the go-kart. You know, no modifications at all. Just slides over the steering shaft and it's ready to go. Like, so anybody who has a current kart that wants to move into, you know, the 80cc or the KZJ, it's this it. You know, you don't have to do hardly any other modifications. You know, I've had a kart before that I had to put on an 80cc and I had to put the, you know, aftermarket shift lever on there, and it just never was right. Like the linkage was always weird, or it would loosen up and it would, you know, because you put a ton of force on this. So you're downshifting in a corner and you hit that thing and it starts moving on you. So I saw this last year or earlier this year with Ivan and Andre, and I was like, this thing just makes sense. I don't know why everybody is kind of like, because it's not traditional, I guess. You know, we've always been using a shift lever ever since I can ever remember being in a shifter. But it's mechanical, so there's no advantage to it. Like, especially with the 80 juniors, I think it's so important for them to be able to keep both hands on the wheel. And that way they can shift and their hands are on the wheel all the time. Because I know there's a lot of times where you're going in a corner hard on a shifter and you get on the brakes and you go shift and you're like, you know, you're cranking up on that, and you know you're trying to turn with one hand going in, and grippy conditions. It's just two hands on a wheel is better than one.
Well, then you get 2 laps to go and your hand's already tired because you're turning with one hand the entire time, and then it slips a little bit and there's one guy next to you. You're like, oh, we're not gonna be friends anymore. But no, I totally get that. And I think it is, some people have tried it. I remember every time someone tried it, it was always the same thing. Everyone flocked to it. They were in awe about it. So it was the coolest thing ever. And then it ended right there. So, and I think a big reason for that is you couldn't buy it from manufacturer because it was mechanical engineers or people who had a third sense when it came to something with gears working, where they thought, okay, let's try this. And sometimes, you know, proof of concept was kind of just going through proof of concept, but now it's a legit site you can go to, designs developed over in Italy. You buy it, bolt it straight on your cart, good to go, clutch attached to it as well. Because I know, Matthew, you've driven almost every chassis under the sun. You know, an aftermarket clutch is probably the worst thing you can get because it starts to slide and you pull it up, it's on the left, and you turn the wheel and somehow it's all the way back around upside down. So it's all in one piece that just bolts on and go. And Ivan, if you want to talk a little bit, how much backlash, I think is the word I'm looking for, have you had of trying to push this new paddle shifter project?
Well, I'm not sure that I understood the word that you were looking for.
How many times have people, when you tried to say, hey, we got a paddle shifter, they said, no, you're crazy, that's a stupid idea? How much of that are you getting right now, or is it mostly positive that you're getting from it?
Well, lately, in maybe last 4 or 5 years, the increase of demand is here. Also, basically, before when you said I'm using pedal shifters, they say, why? You have a lever, it's perfectly working. Why change something? It's for the word that I'm not supposed to say in the cast for for the weak people. But I said, but it's more comfortable. Then they say, okay, let me try it. Then they sit in my cart and make a few rounds, and after they say, oh, my arms are hurting me in this part here, really bad. I said, because you're using the muscles which you never used before. You have to press it. It's mechanical. It's not electrical system. So you have to use the force to shift the gears. I still like the lever better, and I'm more man if I'm shifting with my right hand and holding my steering wheel with my left hand. I said, okay, maybe to you, but for me it's really more interesting to drive a kart with 2 hands. Otherwise, all of the Ferraris and the AMGs and all of the cars still have the lever, and they would not have pedal shifters on them. And that was the end argument of the fight over the lever and the pedal shifters.
And I could totally see too, because I've done it maybe a time or two. The lever is a great way for aggression. I think Jason, we were saying when you downshift, sometimes the race isn't going your way and it starts moving. You're pushing a little bit harder than you normally would be, and a little bit faster as well. It's kind of like the old school phones. We could just slam it down. It's kind of like that way with the shifter. But I think the paddle shifter is a great way as far as, like you're saying, you can use 2 hands, especially for the kiddos, because someone who's 14, 15 years old, maybe goes to the gym twice a week, is a little bit more muscular up top, can hold on to the wheel. Someone who's 12 years old getting into shifter, I'm sure they're already nervous to drive it, and then they go out there and they have to drive with one hand. I think it kind of just takes everything down just a couple of pegs.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead, Ivan.
Sorry. Yeah, we have drivers who are 10 years old. There is a video on YouTube with a driver who is 10 years old. He has a pedal extension for the feet, and he's using the pedal shifters. So it's nothing extreme regarding the power needed in your arms to drive the kart with the pedal shifters.
I think also with the evolution of all the sim racing and sims, these kids are on simulators all the time, and the paddle shifters are the exact same. So I think the transition for them to go to KZ shifter with paddle shifters is just going to be a lot easier, and it's going to make sense. I was talking to Leighton Mall's mom, because Leighton Mall's going to be one of the KZJ kids, and she's like, well, I said, has he got a simulator? She's like, yeah. I go, he shifts? She goes, yeah. I go, he's good. Like, if he knows how to shift on a simulator, he's going to be perfectly fine shifting with this. Like, you know what's up, you know what's down.
This is exactly the good point. This is exactly the good point. The simulators and the shifting. Usually, from my experience, I teach the kids who are from 10 to 15 years old. And in the last 2 weeks, I had 3 trials on the track with the 3 kids who never sit in a car before. There was not drivers who are migrating from 60 or something else. It's a first contact with the car, and I told them, just release the gas, squeeze the pedal, push the gas. When you're braking, push the left pedal, and that's it. They all needed 3 to 4 rounds on the circuit, not sessions. Round to catch it. After maybe 2 sessions, they were already in the power band because they learned this on the simulators.
Now, Jason, you brought up one of the drivers who we run in that 80 junior class, and yeah. I don't know if it was you, Jason, or you, Matthew, who can talk about it better. How did the 80 category come up here? Because I know 12 drivers in total, 10 from America, 12 over from Europe. How did you get the drivers? How did they get the engines? How did this all come together?
I'll let Matt take that one.
Okay. So working with Ivan and Motori Seven, they wanted to demo over here, so they're bringing us engines for these kids to try, and we basically, since we're doing the test at Whiteland, we went to the teams here. So we've got a couple of kids from MPG, a couple of kids from New Gen, a couple of kids from Harden Motorsports, and then I think we got one from AMAX.
CW.
Yeah, we got Leighton running with CW too. So, they all seemed super enthusiastic about it. So it didn't take much convincing.
Yeah, so we're doing not a week, about a 3-day test session here at Whiteland before we go to the Speedrome. So the kids are going to be pretty comfortable in the karts before they go actually into a racing situation. And then we're also having other kids come who are not one of the 12 who are interested in checking it out and getting in and doing some test driving. And so I have a feeling, long as weather, October in Indiana is a little iffy, but long as our weather is great, I think we're going to have a pretty decent turnout of kids coming, if not sitting in a go-kart and taking laps in it, at least going around looking at it and showing some interest in it. I think, Motori Seven, Ivan, all these motors are handcrafted. He sent us a video of him making these motors for this event for us,
Exactly.
it is kind of crazy. My first ICC motor, Ivan, was a Motori 7. Like, that's why I've always kind of loved them. Their motors were always great. And Ivan and Andre have been amazing to work with on this. They're floating the bill on getting everything over here for us to be able to do this, to put these kids in. They're bringing 2 of their personal drivers over from, I think one's from Croatia, and where's the other one from, Ivan?
It's from Italy.
From Italy.
It's from Cesena. It's Cesena. Cesena is the place where Motori 7 is.
And it's kind of funny because you start, you're talking to the junior drivers that are going to run this. You go, hey, they're bringing in 2 guys from Europe to race with you guys. And they're like, what? Like, we're running against, it's like, you're going to run against 2 guys from Europe. So, it's kind of got them a little bit more excited about doing it. But I think I can't wait to see the look on those kids' faces when they come in after hitting a power, even though it's what is a 26 horsepower motor, but hitting gears and shifting gears and feeling the ferociousness of using the engine to brake and just the power coming out of corners with them. I can't wait to drive one. 125s beat the crap out of me. So I'm kind of excited. And that kind of leads us into the next thing is then after we're done with that event, we're doing what we call the sportsman shifter at Whiteland here at an IKC race the next weekend, where it's going to be seniors running the 80cc motor with the paddle shifters. So we're trying to use Ivan all we can while they're here. So, and I think the other thing is exactly what Ivan was talking before the podcast on the motors is he said you have 300 hours on a piston. Is that right, Ivan?
Yeah, correct.
That's insane.
Yeah. Well, in one point in discussion during the lunch break, I said, Andrea, we messed it up again. We built again an engine that will last forever. so I said, okay, we're going to make some more power out of it. We can change the exhaust. We can change the intake with lamella inside and everything. We can increase the power. Then we can basically make it like others that you can need to change the piston really often. But the latest evolution now is squeezing a little bit more of the power. It's basically now a difference. It's a little bit faster than OK Junior and a little bit faster than X30 on the track. Before we were maybe 0304 slower than the X30 on the track. I'm talking about grip track with the Europe style tracks, not dirty parking lots, but really track. And right now we are a little bit faster than the X30, and it's really satisfying for me to see the first row with because we drive together in these classes, X30, OK Junior, Rotax Junior. We drive together with them on the same sessions, and it's satisfying to see the first row completely full with KZ Juniors.
And Jason, I think you brought up a good point too. love shifters altogether. Going back to when I used to announce for Kart Chaser, I would always talk about how great 125 is. Absolutely love shifter class. However, being as I'm in my mid-20s now and I have a 9 to 5 and I'm tired when I get home from work, I love the idea of an 80 shifter coming back. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, it's a little bit slower, you can race tighter. 125 is, this thing's awesome. And then once I think it was Race Liberante said, as soon as you hit 23, you no longer can race senior. You just have to wait till you can run masters. Maybe it was 25.
Unless you're Musgrave.
Unless you're the freaks of nature that we have running up front right now, 100%.
Yeah.
But no,
there is one tip for that. That's don't change tires. Just use your old tires, and it will not beat the crap out. Use old tires, and that's it.
Sideways.
But I think
long.
There is you hear the chatter on, the e-karting or on Facebook and where else, Wesley is, West Coast trying to push for junior shifters, but I think he's looking more of a restricted 125. And then you have Billy doing his program with a Yamaha 80. But again, man, I'm a purist. I remember the first time I took a Honda off my cart and I put an ICC on it and it just fit. I didn't have to cut seats. It just fit. I didn't have to modify anything. I didn't need a machine shop to get a motor to work. Like, it just fit. And because it's made for karting. And that's why I'm so excited about, the KZJ, the 80, the L8 that Motori Seven's bringing. It's, I remember back in the day going to Super Nats, and we had 50 80cc juniors, and then all of a sudden it just went away. And I think it's because the motors just got so expensive at that time. And, there's been a void, like you said earlier, Caleb, there's been a void for that step to the next level. And I'm just hoping that we'll get enough interest in this. And we've been talking the Janowski at Stars, but the problem we're running into is where does it fit into their programs? They already have so many classes. Where does it fit? And then, Ivan said that they let it run with, the OKN juniors because the timing's about the same. The speeds are pretty close to the same, but, how do you do a standing start versus a rolling start? There's some things, I don't know. It may be a couple years before it gets adopted into that national level, but, we're sure going to push it, here at SIRA and try to get it to grow in the Midwest and continue to grow throughout the country. I think that we can definitely get, Andy here at Whiteland is all about him, and his son's going to be one of the guys, one of the 10 that's going to be with us. This Whiteland would be an absolute perfect 80cc track. 125, not so much. 80cc, absolutely, and we'll see some great races. So I'm excited about it. I've been talking to Ivan and Andre since January of this year, and then kind of died down a little bit. Then Matt got back in touch with them, and the program or the package is affordable. It's no more than a KA motor that these kids would have to buy. And as you can tell, Ivan said 300 hours on a piston. So you don't have to worry about a ton of maintenance with it or starters going out. And then they're also getting that next step if they want to go on to even cars, but if they want to go to the 125 shifter, it definitely makes more sense.
Well, I remember a couple things on there to unpack there. I remember talking with Xander Clements when I said, hey, there's kind of a skip over a shifter where you have the senior and nothing down. And obviously he's so involved with karting as it is. I remember talking to him and he's like, at the end of the day, you get to the track at 7 a.m., you're not leaving until 6 p.m. So you're going to add another class. That's not just one rotation. That's an extra practice. That's an extra heat race. That's an extra second heat race. That's an extra LCQ, an extra race. And I told him, I said, well, maybe it needs to be a 60cc. He's like, well, Caleb, at that point, you might as well just have an outlaw series that's only shifters that might make both rotations go faster, but then you're adding another series on top of all the other series that we already have. So maybe it's just meant to stay in the regional and the in-between series where it builds you up to where you can get to the senior, or maybe someone to figure out who makes way more money than I do and more intelligent about it. But Ivan, when we said 300 hours, I recalled back to when I had my 80 and had to rebuild that thing every other weekend. The thing was torn down to bare bones, it seemed like, and had to get rebuilt. So 300 hours, 100% impressive. And I think that's definitely going to help, because the first thing people mention shifter. They either think the Pro Mod Hondas, where they would blow up after 5 gallons of fuel, or they think of the old KZ or ICCs where they used to just detonate after 20 hours. So seeing as that the hours are starting to come up and quality seems to be coming back into shifters, or starting at shifters, I should say, I think is going to help out as well. And talking to other people as well about how many engines alone are coming into this 80 program, they're worried that's just going to be kind of just like a giant mess of engines. But the thing I always say is look at the KZ class now. You have 4 or 5 different engine manufacturers, all run similar time. So Ivan, I don't want to talk about your competitors. Obviously, Motori 7 is the greatest 80 engine ever on the market right now. But talking a little bit about that with just the other competitors, and I think as of right now, Yamaha might be the only other liable 80 class out there. But has that been any concern or conversation you guys have had over there in Italy?
We don't have that. We at this moment in Europe, the only producer of 80cc shifter engine is Motori 7. We also produce 125 shifters. There is a little bit more competition, I would say. We have a TN there, we have a Vortex, we have Modena, but basically I think there is only 7 producers of the 2-stroke racing engines in the world, and we are one of them. So it's really nice place to be, 7 factories on the world producing racing engines, and right now we are the only one who produced the 80cc for karting. There are adaptations, but they are not cutting engines. Exactly like Ewers says, you don't have to cut anything. You don't have to do any modifications. Just bolt on and drive. This was the point, and at this point we are the only one who produced it.
I remember sitting in the garage trying to create 18 different ways to mount a fuel pump because it wouldn't fit in the cart just right. So with that, I want to thank you guys, Matthew and Jason, for making the drive down to Whiteland so you can be a part of this. Hopefully this helps get the word out and everyone can talk more about the up and coming. I'll bring that back up right here because I think this is just a beautiful track layout that you guys have, especially talking about with Supernats. But correct me if I'm wrong, October 19th and 20th at Indianapolis Speedrome. We're going to have the Speedrome Smackdown, sponsored by Factory Fury GP Kart USA. 2-day event, and like we said, return of the 80cc junior shifter here on the U.S. market. I'm going to leave it for some closing thoughts here because I know everyone has to get underway, and I'm sure Ivan is probably 2 o'clock in the morning there. So we'll just go top down. Matthew, closing thoughts, what you have here so far.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. Okay. I appreciate you doing this podcast with us and helping us get the word out. I'm super excited to be working with Ivan and Motori 7 to do this 80cc junior. I know we've been talking about needing a junior class for a couple years now, and he's helping us make it happen.
Jason?
Yep. So again, thanks, Caleb. Appreciate it. Ivan. Thanks for staying up. It's at the end of the day, we just want people to come down, be interested in the 80 as a junior, or even as a senior. We'll be down here the week before the Speedrome race. If any kids want to come out and take a look at it and pop in and check it out yourself, come on down. Just reach out to Matt or myself or anybody, one of the SRA directors. So you make sure we're going to be here, and just enjoy something new in karting, or bringing back in karting, that is purpose built. And that's to me is what's bigger than anything else. And as you heard what Ivan said, longevity in the motor. You don't have to worry about constantly rebuilding your motors, having 13 pistons for a weekend or anything like that, So it's great. I can't wait. Ivan, I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks. This is going to be an awesome event. Speedrome's going to be great. Entries are live right now. So if anybody wants to enter for the race, it's up and live. Alpha timing, right, Matt? At Alpha timing. And come join us. If you can't be there, come watch.
And something I want to add real quick too, because I think I am going to be making the trek from North Florida all the way up, because I might break the rust off here and get back behind the wheel and bang some gears again. But something I was absolutely shocked by, $100 entry fee, all classes, correct? $100 entry fee for all classes? Or am I blind?
Yeah, no, it is a $100 entry fee. So that's really it. We're trying to keep it cheap.
But I just want to talk about that for a second. That's a $100 entry fee for 2 days of racing. Granted, it's not entirely nonstop on track, but 2 full days of racing for $100, I think in today's economy is fantastic. And kudos to you guys for making that work. And Ivan, I'm going to end it with you. We made you wait for 20 minutes and then gave the rest of the time to talk. So I know you're going to be over, like you said, you're going to be in Miami the weekend before and then up Indianapolis. So your closing thoughts so far.
Well, guys already told everything about the category and the engine itself. What I would say, just come over, see us, meet us. You will have the chance maybe once in your lifetime to meet actual creator and the producer of the engine, actual racing engine. We will be there at the track for you, and we will answer any questions, technical or not technical, to you, and we will be at your disposal.
Absolutely. Yes, Jason. You're muted, Jason.
Oh, sorry. I'm saying this now because I want to hold that man accountable. He's running Supernat's Master Shifter. So now we said it. Now it's something he can't back out. He's already signed up.
So he will run the L97, or?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Burpo's running Master Shifter. I thought you were saying Ivan was.
No, Burpo.
Burpo, you're going out to Vegas?
Yes, I am going to do Vegas. I've been talking about doing it since I came back, and I'm going to do it this year.
There you go. Well, we're going to have some fun out in Las Vegas, and not too much fun until Sunday night, I guess. Ivan, are you going to make I'm sure you're going to be out there with Motori 7 engines, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to be Matt's mechanic.
Oh, there you go. So you have zero excuses here, Mr. Burpo.
Well, also let you know, too, I know we got to run out of time, but Ivan also has a karting line called Oberon. So Matt will be on, I believe, the Oberon cart with a Motori 7 L9.
There you go. And then I know there's a video that goes through the entire mechanism of the paddle shifters and the clutch and how the engine operates with all of it together. It's really interesting and cool. I was struggling to get it up on this video, and I wanted it full audio and everything. So it's going to be attached to this video. If you just scroll down a little bit, you can find the entire breakdown, or link, I should say, to how the Motori 7 paddle shifter, clutch, gearbox, all that, and all the it's a beautiful design altogether, and you can see how that works. So I want to thank all of you guys here for being a part of this. And I don't do these podcasts as regularly. It's kind of been hard now that life has taken over after graduating from college and having to have adult responsibilities. So Jason Ewers, thank you so much. Ivan and Matthew, thank you again for being on here. And check out SIRA Karting on Facebook and Instagram to see more updates. And if you're running Supernats, we're right here. We're the crossroads of Indiana, okay? You're going to have to go. If you're from the East Coast, you have to go past us to go out to Vegas. If you're from the West Coast, well, you can probably make it out here anyway. So come on out here. Let's have a good event. And let's get everyone prepped here for Supernats. And let's get all the guys who are running here in the Midwest some airtime as well. So thank you all for being here this afternoon. And hopefully we'll see you guys here in a couple weeks at the Speedrome Smackdown. Thank you, guys.